Welcome to Changing Higher Ed, a podcast dedicated to helping higher education leaders improve their institutions. With your host, Dr. Drumm McNaughton, CEO of The Change Leader, a consultancy that helps higher ed leaders holistically transform their institutions. Learn more at changinghighered.com. And now, here's your host, Drumm McNaughton.
Thank you, David. My guest today is Raz Dar, CEO of Elvee, an AI-powered platform that transforms how organizations identify and can act on early signals of student engagement, which lead to their dropping out. Raz brings a rare combination of deep technical expertise and strategic commercial acumen to Elvee. His previous positions include senior roles across the global technology ecosystem, companies that include Amazon Web Services and Amdocs. His ability to bridge product, data, and business strategy has been a defining theme throughout his career. And he joins me to talk about how institutions can improve student retention through proactive use of AI to monitor behavioral data that surfaces early risk signals to enable institutions to intervene before disengagement leads to dropout. This is one of those podcasts where we're tapping into commercial expertise, areas that could potentially help higher ed. Raz, welcome to the program.
Hi, Drumm. Thanks. I really appreciate being here.
My pleasure. I'm looking forward to a great conversation. You're at Elvee, and you've had quite the career over many, many years, not as many as mine, but you're still a young kid. So give us a little bit about your background. We're going to be talking about how higher ed can do better with respect to student retention, which is something that your firm does a great job with.
Right.
But you've had a fascinating career.
Yeah, I joined Elvee a year and a half ago as a CEO of the company, and we'll talk more about that. But prior to that, I spent most of my career at both corporate and startup companies, mostly in the customer-facing roles. I actually started as a developer. I'm an engineer in my background. I studied industrial engineering, and I started as a developer, actually out of college. But very, very early on, I decided that what's really fascinating me is working with customers, is understanding the ecosystem, the challenges, solving problems for customers, for their customers as well. So I spent the majority of my career with a company called Amdocs, which is a leading customer care and billing system. I worked with in the US. I was living in the US at the time, working with AT&T and Sprint and other big telecommunication companies. I moved to AWS, Amazon Web Services, to help big enterprises move to cloud. And I worked with some very large organization, NICE being one of them, NICE, the big contact center solution provider. And then I decided corporates is enough. I moved to startups. And this is actually my third one. So yes, I like taking challenges that are hard to crack.
So this is an interesting background. How did this prepare you for higher education? We're seeing more and more people coming from corporate moving into education industry.
It's actually it's a fascinating topic, and I'm really, really passionate about it. First of all, I spent 4 years of my life in college, right? So I felt it. I went through it. My kid is currently in college. He started. He's a freshman. So, and I over the years, I've seen many people starting college, and something happens, and they drop out. It could be financial. It could be many reasons, and they decide to drop out of college or not even start, and that has a huge impact on their entire life. Right? And it's not only them, it's their family, it's their environment, everybody. And this is really an interesting topic.
It certainly is. My sense in the conversations that we've had is that your engineering background makes you very detail oriented, so that in higher education, it is the details that make the big difference.
Right.
The devil's in the details, of course. But with those details, especially when we're talking about student retention, which is really what Elvee specializes in, my sense is that probably prepared you to be able to look at the multiple data points that go into retention.
Absolutely. So, each and every one of us has a certain pattern in life, right? You go to work, you go to maybe you study, maybe you do some exercise, maybe you spend some time with the family, your kid. You touch a lot of systems along the way, and you do a lot of activities which are very, very easy to analyze. And especially as a student, and especially students that are now, as colleges and universities move after COVID more to online studies and even hybrid education, right? Some online, some in class. There's a lot of data points. They touch a lot of systems.
Yes.
They do many things that are very easy to analyze and identify based on those data points, identify engagement levels. Now, it's to some students, we obviously focus on retention. We're obviously focusing on those students that struggle, that potentially are likely to drop out as a result. Not every challenge becomes a dropout, right? Correct. So it's very easy to understand. It's very easy to understand, to look at it holistically, not just one point.
Yeah. Which is what needs to happen, is look at it holistically.
Yeah.
Right now, there's 42 million folks who have actually dropped out. That old saying, the most expensive college degree is the one that you will never finish. But you at Elvee just did a survey about higher ed retention. Give us a little background on it, because I think that really sets the story for what we're seeing with retention and the factors that go into students dropping out.
Absolutely. We work with colleges and institutes to help them using our platform and using our AI models to identify students that are disengaging, right?
Okay.
What we wanted to do is
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt. What do you mean by disengaging?
Very good question. Disengagement means a student is starting to fall off or starting to get detached himself from the academics, from school. So if he used to spend, 5 hours a day online studying, learning, submitting assignments, doing homework, all of that, suddenly you see him spending half that and even less. If you saw him logging into the platform, once a day or even multiple times a day, suddenly you see them logging in every other day or every 3 days. They used to be very active in forums, in discussions with other students or with faculties. Now they're silent. They're becoming more silent. This is what I call disengagement. And
so you're looking at patterns.
And we're looking at patterns. Not all a student that is suddenly, as I said, suddenly not spending enough time doesn't mean that he's likely to drop out. Maybe that's the specific course that he's taking is easy for him compared to others, right? But so that's fine. He spends less time than others or less time than other courses. But over time, when you look at his pattern and you look at all of these data points and signals, you start to create a map of that student behavior, and which can indicate on some challenges.
So you folks did the survey. There's some good background on it, but I really like the findings that you had talking about folks first going into school, a very high percentage of folks who are motivated to succeed.
Exactly. So, going back to the survey. So we went to the actual student. We wanted to understand, not from the colleges who are our customers, but directly from the students. What caused them to drop out? How could we help the college help them? Right? How could we identify it better? How could we become more proactive in our approach? So we went to the source. We went to the students, and we surveyed over 1,000 students in colleges in the US. And we found out that actually when they start, they are very, very much motivated, very motivated. 86% are highly motivated.
Wow, that's big.
So they start with this aspiration, with this motivation, with this, they're looking forward to the school. They want to succeed. They eventually want to get a career, right? And they want to succeed in life. And their parents, which I'll talk a lot about, their parents also want them to succeed, right?
Of course.
What else do you want from your kid, right? You expect him to be successful in life. So they come in very, very highly motivated, and then something happens. Amongst the 1,050, actually, this is the exact number, 1,050 students, 42%, almost half, said that they felt close to dropping out at one point in time.
Wow.
Yes.
42%. I mean, that's 1,050. That's 425 students.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. You're good in math, Drumm.
I was a physics major. I had to be.
Now, eventually, in the average industry in the market is that 32% dropout. So not all of them do, but a lot of them thought about it. They came close to it. And 32% eventually drop out, which is still a huge number. You could probably do the math.
So what are the reasons why they thought about dropping out?
Yeah. So the number one reason, very close to number two, is that they're balancing between time and work becomes a challenge. A lot of it need to pay for school themselves. They need to work, or they decide to work. And then balancing it out become a challenge because school is demanding. So that's 72% is about that, which is to some extent understandable. The other parameter, the other indication, which I was really, really surprised about, is that 71% indicated mental or stress issues.
Interesting.
Yes, very, very interesting. So something along the way happens and they become either stressed, very stressed, they have some other mental issues, and they decide that they cannot cope with it anymore. This is actually, and I experienced it firsthand, actually. Exactly what happened to my kid, as I said, who's a freshman in college, right? He works, he studies. I don't know if he would be happy that I tell him, but he had some personal issues with a girlfriend and, young kids, young people, and a few other things that happened that was out of his control. And right before, and all the stress of exam period coming in, he just went into kind of a tough period, a very, very, a very tough period, which eventually he decided not to go into the first exam. Then he skipped the second one. He managed to get out of it eventually. And he went to the third with a lot of help from us and external help. He managed to get the third one. And eventually he was able to overcome this challenge and move on to the next semester.
Good for him.
Yeah, he's fine. But I experienced it. I saw it. And you know what? Throughout his entire semester, every week, obviously seeing him almost every day, he still lives at home. Luckily for me, many students this age, they leave home. This is another challenge they have, right? They go to a place where they've never been before. It's completely alone. They live with other people. They leave their entire community behind. So that's another challenge. Luckily for him, he still lives at home. So I was able to monitor it personally and address it right there in the spot.
Yeah. So these students become disengaged. There's a risk that they could drop out. You've developed at Elvee, you've developed this program using AI, which monitors students, like you talked about, the amount of time online. You analyze the students' activities to find out, is there a chance?
Yeah.
In the past, it used to be like what your son experienced. You miss a couple of exams or things like that, which really can put you completely behind the eight ball.
Exactly.
You're looking at patterns here, are you not?
Absolutely. That's exactly what we do. So the current methodology of identifying students that struggle is looking at grades and attendance. And as we just discussed, once a student starts failing and he missed few classes, he opened up a big gap that is very hard to close, very difficult to close. And this is the result that when they reach that point, a lot of them already halfway out.
Yes.
What we are doing, we are looking at their behavior online, and any data point that we can get, by the way. If it's not online, if we can get attendance, in-class attendance, if they track it, we get it as well. And we detect, based on those patterns of behavior, we detect students that are starting to disengage before exams period, before they start failing. And this is when we alert the system, we alert the student success team in college. This is a student that you need to attend to now. This is the time to intervene and provide support. And so our system is basically, you can call it an operation system for student success, to identify students that struggle, that disengage, provide intervention, and also very, very important is to continue monitoring the student activities ongoing to make sure that the pattern was effective. Because oftentimes they think that they provided a solution to the student, they'll provide tutoring, or they send him to some counseling or any other measure that they have. And they have a lot of capabilities in their hand to support those students. But then they come up and report a couple of weeks later that the student dropped out. They didn't help. And so there's a gap between the support that the college provide and the way the student receive it. So we close.
Well, it's the early intervention to me seems to be the key.
Yes.
If you can monitor the data points and you have trends based on all students, and I would assume for a particular college as well.
Yes.
You can start to see that, flag that particular student to the student success team or an early intervention. Many times, and when you stop and think about it, freshmen away from home, very, very difficult situation for many students. They don't know how to reach out to get help. It's not that the professor or anybody else wants them to fail. Right. They just don't know what needs to be done to intervene or when to intervene.
It's really a good point, Drumm. So although, again, a very surprising statistics that came out of the survey, although colleges go above and beyond by advertising the services that they provide, and they have a lot of services that they provide students. They want the student to succeed. Right? The student that responded to our survey, only 17% are asking for help. Only 17%. Wow. 52% are trying first to solve it themselves, and only then, if they don't succeed, they may be looking for help. 30% never ask for any help. They never reach out at all. Again, although the college is advertising the services and everywhere they go, and you cannot ignore it. For some reason, those students, they don't ask for it. Only 17%, which is really, really interesting. So you need to be proactive. You don't need to wait for the student to approach you. The colleges that are really invested in this, and some of those they work with us, they are proactively approaching the student. They almost chasing the student, right? In order to help them.
We did a project for a major R1 university a while back, and part of it had to do with onboarding the new president. So we talked about, where are the challenges that students are facing, and one of them was mental health. Goes to right what you're talking about. And when people say mental health nowadays, there's still a stigma around that. It's like, well, the guy's gone the English would call it doolally. They've gone crazy. But that's not it at all. These students, especially the ones that have moved away from home, they have so much on their plates. They need that personal touch to just say, hey, you're okay. You're going through everything. You're going through the same things that 80% of your other cohorts do. We're here to help you, whether it just be listen, whether to be tutor on a particular subject you may not understand, but we're here to help. Oftentimes, that's exactly what the student needs.
Exactly. Absolutely. Can't agree with you more. So the student comes in, he thinks that he's having a challenge. He thinks that he's the only one that's gone through this. But, the college has so much experience. They've seen everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just providing the assurance, you're not alone. We're here for you. Other students experience it before. You're not the only person that is having some challenges. And again, we can help you. We want you to
Mm-hmm.
succeed. So back to my kid, when the college realized that he didn't go into his first and second exams, they actually called him. He fell right into the statistics. He didn't call them. They called him and said, "Hey, what's going on?" And he said, "Look, I'm going through a phase." He says, "That's fine. We're here for you. Don't stress out. We will provide you this and this support. If you didn't go to these exams, you can take it over." For him, they said, "You can take it again. Don't worry about it.
Wow.
You can take it kind of a third try," right? And that provides so much assurance to him. He said, "Oh, wow, somebody's actually want me to succeed. I'm not they're not against me. They're with me in this."
Yes.
Right? And that was
so critical.
That was critical.
And it's interesting, your son lives at home.
Yep.
You had gone, it's not like he didn't have an example. You and possibly his mother, went to college, so they saw that they had that thing, and yet he still was going through the challenges.
Yes.
You think about your son, and then you think about the first generation students who never had that example or away from home for the first time. The stressors there, we talk about mental health. This is just perfect, normal things that folks in that situation go through. We need to have a little more compassion with this type of thing.
Absolutely. And some of the colleges that we work with, they don't wait for those challenges to appear with students.
Good.
The successful ones, they create this bond, and a personalized bond with the student from day one. So they almost, to some extent, they escort him through from enrollment to graduation. And he knows that he has this person that he can always call, always email, always text. He will be there, or she will be there to support. When they start school, they call him up. They ask him, "Do you have everything? Did you get your books? Can you get online? Do you have Wi-Fi at home? Do you have all the basics, right? That will allow you to succeed." And if not, they provide support. Do you have a computer? Some of those don't have computers, right? So they provide all of those supports. And when the challenge happens, he knows exactly who to reach out to.
And a lot of this, it really needs to start, and you can tell I'm very passionate about this subject.
Me too.
This has to start when the student says, "I want to go to your college." You need to establish those relationships through the orientation.
Yes.
I've had guests on from University of Cambridge who they have with first-gen lower income students coming into the college. They have a second orientation. They have what they call a bridge week, where the new freshmen come in and they go through,
of course,
in-depth things, so they're not worried about where the classes are going to be. They've met their advisors. They know these folks are there to help them. And then they go through the regular orientation. I think more colleges are starting to do this. And then some colleges, Yale, as a great example, they have a specific freshman course required for everybody, teaches them how to manage money, teaches them how to study, all of these things. I think this is so critical nowadays for students.
Absolutely. I can't agree with you more. Absolutely. One of the challenges in this is that these teams are relatively small, right?
Yes.
So they could have thousands of students, but they have maybe a dozen of advisors, right?
Yeah.
And this is exactly where our system comes to assist. So we create this prioritized list of those students that you need to attend to now. Obviously, the more students you touch, the more students you talk to, you provide support better. But let's first identify and attend to those that need it the most. Right? And in the future, we'll introduce more and more automated automation capabilities into the platform. So the student can get a welcome message. He can get, a first course, first week email. He will get, if he's starting to struggle, he will get some enforcement automatically, not waiting for those advisors to reach out, and he can always call back. So that's kind of the challenge. There's one advisor on many, many students that they need to attend.
And it's curious to me. You've got the student advisors, you've got the faculty, different roles, but they all play into retention.
Right. They do.
It stuns me that when you've got turnover rates, like if you compare higher education to corporate America, if you've got a turnover rate of 10% or more than 10% from a customer perspective or anything else, you're wondering what's going on. Higher ed seems to tolerate, a third turnover or graduation rates of 50%. There's something wrong there.
Yeah, I agree with you. We see in the market, we see a big change in terms of how the colleges nowadays attend to students. In the past, it was, we are providing you these academic services, go study, go through the exams, graduate, everything is great. Now they understand that they need to provide more. And they need to chaperone the student. And they need to help him out. And it's not only because of tuition revenue, right? Some of it is, don't get me wrong. Some of these private schools, they care about the tuition revenue, right? But I think for those people that work at it, it's in their heart to help students succeed. It's not about the money. It's not about the revenue. They want to see. I agree. They want to see more and more people graduate.
And we're living in so much more a complex world than when you and I went through college. I mean, it was relatively simple when I did. Right. I graduated back in 1978. So it was a simple war. You had the Russian or the Soviets. You had the Americans. There was the Cold War going on, all of those kind of things. There wasn't the level of complexity that we have now that students deal with, whether, you're a student, whether you're an adult. There's so much more complexity, and it's easy to see why students get stressed out with everything that's going on. And we need to be able to help them.
Yeah, and also think about, there's a few other factors. When I went to school, not in the 70s, but in the 90s, I went to school. When I graduated, my entire class, and as I said, I studied engineering, my entire class went to big corporates. They wanted to work at big corporates, IBM, Intel, Microsoft. I went to work with Amdocs. So that was our goal, right? And we had these job fairs that these big companies came. And nowadays, and especially with AI, people think they don't need to study. They start school, they spend a lot of time, a lot of money, 4 years in school, right? And one, they don't know if they'll have a job at the end because AI is now disrupting everything. And second is they think, hey, everything is so easy today. I can use Cloud Code and I can develop any application I want and I can build my startup. I don't need to go to these corporates. So that's another big factor, and those students are getting confused.
Yes. Yeah, very much so.
And they're changing their mind, and suddenly they say, oh, you know what? I've seen people that succeed and make billions of dollars and become these entrepreneurs that didn't go to school. Or even advocate, or some even advocate against school.
Yes. And it's about 1 out of a billion who actually make that.
Exactly.
Well, this has been a fascinating conversation. Just to kind of loop back, it's so critical for that early intervention with students for student retention, graduation rates, et cetera, and especially the freshmen are the ones who are most at risk, although they're not the only ones.
Correct.
So, early intervention, working closely with your student success team, with the faculty to make sure these are the key things that are necessary for improving retention.
Absolutely. It's, as you said, it's early. It's first of all building trust with the students, because when they struggle and you approach them, you need to have a relationship. So first of all, it's building trust. That's one. Second is move from reactive to proactive. Don't wait for the student to call you. Reach out to them, right? And second is make it a strategic, measurable metric or KPI from the top, that retention is of retention, and put some people behind it to drive it, right? To reduce the dropout rates. People like student success teams, people like advisors, all the support capabilities that some do very, very well. And some we hear, we have one person, or he was just assigned yesterday, or he's a group of 5 people over thousands and thousands of students. So if you make it a strategic investment, then you need to create a team behind it to drive it.
Well, you just gave 3 great takeaways, so thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's next for you? What's next for Elvee?
So we are just starting. We are working already with thousands of students, with colleges in the US, and we want to help more and more students. So first of all, it's about scale. Our focus market is currently in the US. So first of all, we want to scale our business to support as many colleges, institutes, and students eventually. That's one. We also are now introducing more and more automation and AI into the platform. So as we talked about, these student success teams are relatively small. We want to empower them to look at and attend to those that need the most. But a lot of the care and support for those students that kind of fall in the middle, that may need some touch-up, may need some care, it can be done automatically, either with an app, with AI. So we are introducing now more and more AI capabilities into the platform as well. Eventually, it's not only about retention, it's about supporting the student throughout, helping him with academics, preparing for career, prepare for life.
Well, this has been a fabulous conversation. I really appreciate your taking the time with me, Raz. I wish you guys all the best. What you're doing, I think, is incredible, and keep up the great work.
Thanks a lot, Drumm. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Likewise. Cheers. Thanks for listening today, and a special thank you to my guest, Raz Dar, CEO of Elvee. Raz, thanks for joining me on the program. Thanks for helping us out with great ideas about retention and how AI can be a monitor of those areas that potentially lead to a student dropping out. For my listeners, thanks again for tuning in. See you next week.
Changing Higher Ed is a production of The Change Leader, a consultancy committed to transforming higher ed institutions. Find more information about this topic, along with show notes on this episode, at changinghighered.com. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe to the show, and we would also value your honest rating and review. Email any questions, comments, or recommendations for topics or guests to podcast@changinghighered.com. Changing Higher Ed is produced and hosted by Dr. Drumm McNaughton, post-production by David L. White.